Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's now 2:59 in the afternoon. We're just about to start our first of a series of 20 sessions on teaching in the trenches, real tools for real struggles. Many are here now. I think there are more who will be following our recording. And so today we are so lucky to have to open this series um, a very good friend of mine, and also he's the Dean of the School of Education of the University of Asia and the Pacific, a seasoned teacher, professor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our speaker for today, Dr. Ernesto Grillo.
Uh, good afternoon to everyone, and good afternoon, man, and thank you so much. So let me begin right away. I hope you can hear me very clearly.
Yep, very clear.
Okay, thank you so much. So let me begin right away by first by sharing my screen. Okay, right. Okay. So let's take a look at the very first session for, as mentioned by Man, a 20 session or 20 modules that has something to do with effective teaching or the effective teacher. And this particular module or session will talk about burnout, specifically how to prevent burnout in September. How to prevent burnout in September. And then you have the subtitle there, How to Reset Before It's Too Late. Let's take a look at where do we start? And let's take a look at a module, or rather a slide, a part of the slide that has something to do with a well-known psychologist or psychotherapist. And this particular quotation coming from the psychologist is a very positive note about who we are as teachers. Because I would like to emphasize before we take a look at burnout, before we take a look at the strategies on how to cope with burnout, I want to emphasize the point that teachers are resilient. That teachers are resilient. So therefore, we begin by taking a look at the important work that we do every day. Because sometimes we we fail to remember the impact that we have on the people whom we work with, our colleagues, our teachers, and most especially the students who are inside our classrooms, the people whom we handle, the people whom we teach. And I'm talking about, well, teaching, I'm talking about Dr. Haim Ginot. And here, I would like to emphasize this particular point from the perspective of Dr. Ginot as a teacher, because he said, number one, teachers are expected to reach unattainable goals with inadequate tools. Later on, I will explain what this particular sentence, what is the meaning of this particular sentence. And he also said the miracle is that at times, or rather many times, I would say, they accomplish this impossible task. And when we talk about teaching, we have to talk about challenges. And in order for us to be able to teach well, to become effective in what we do, or even efficient in what we do, we have to thrive despite these challenges. Because when we take a look at teaching, there are several goals that we have to achieve. Yeah, we have to teach well. We have to prepare our lesson plans. We have to choose the right teaching method. Then we go inside the classroom and then we teach. We have sometimes or many times we serve as a class advisor, and also we coach or mentor our students. And take a look at those goals and the challenges that we encounter. Well, number one, heavy workload. In the case of a university teacher like me, a 30-unit faculty load. Maybe in the case of an elementary school teacher or a high school teacher, going back to what I can remember when I was in basic education, maybe 5 to 6 subjects or 5 to 6 sections. And then there's the problem of inadequate professional development. We lack the sessions that we need in order for us to continue to grow, to continue to learn. And in some schools, there is what we call a toxic workplace. This is the context why Dr. Gino, okay, as we quoted a while ago, mentioned that, okay, unattainable goals, inadequate tools, but despite those, the teachers still accomplish the impossible task. And that impossible task has something to do with the formation of the children that are under us, whether we are teaching them social studies, or whether we are serving as a class advisor, or whether you are serving as a mentor. I would, just like what I said, I wanted to emphasize that because when we talk about burnout, when we talk about stress, when we talk about anxiety, it is important to take note of the fact that the teacher is resilient, that indeed it is very possible to prevent burnout, hopefully as early as September, October. So we continue and take a look at that particular month. Why September? So June, July, August, 3 months have passed. In the context of the university, July, August, okay, almost 2 months of regular classes. And I would like us to take a look at this particular note coming from an author who considered the September-October as the period wherein he calls it the survival phase. Because he said, here, the teacher is starting to become overwhelmed. Maybe lesson planning, maybe a lot of paperwork, a lot of papers to check, maybe a lot of meetings, faculty meetings, or even probably attending a post-observation conference with the immediate supervisor, or classroom management issues. But precisely, this is the month when things get to pile up and the teacher gets overwhelmed. There is a realization that I have a lot of work to do. And what do I do in order for me to be able to to make sure that I rise up to the occasion, that I can actually attend to all of these tasks and therefore do my work very well, which means teaching well. And this particular observation is continued here. The stress of the job is hitting us. Okay? Stress, anxiety comes in. And the teacher feels like a duck, appearing calm on the outside, especially when he goes inside the classroom, meets the students, teaches the lessons. But inside, okay, one is scrambling. There is not only a sense of urgency, but maybe there is a sense of helplessness. Okay, it is starting to creep in. And indeed, the title talks about, the subtitle or the title itself talks about this particular phenomenon. A phenomenon that we need to contend with, especially because, just like what I said a while ago, we have to be resilient. And that particular quotation affirms, okay, that despite the challenges that we face, okay, it is possible for a teacher to actually triumph over those challenges. So let's take a look at what the research is telling us regarding the teaching as a profession. This profession is important, but take a look at the fact that it is under threat. From where? From the teacher himself. Meaning to say, maybe it's because of certain policies, maybe certain programs, maybe because of the culture of the school, maybe because of the workload, or maybe because of the fact that this is my personality. But the thing is, we have to recognize the fact that no, our profession is very important, but it is under threat. And this particular threat comes from the fact that our profession is rather stressful. And therefore, if we did not do something about it, that particular stress may lead to burnout. And we know that when someone is burnt out, one of the grave consequences is that we leave the profession. There's attrition. So, therefore, in the research literature, teaching is widely recognized as one of the most stressful professions. So just imagine, for example, a doctor, right? A doctor takes a look at a patient one at a time. I mean, even in the emergency room, the emergency doctor attends to, I don't know, two or three or four, but probably rarely 10 patients at the same time. But when you take a look at our work, we attend to 25 different persons at the same time, or maybe even 35 or 40 different persons at the same time. So if you take a look at that particular comparison alone, you realize that our profession is more stressful than the one of the medical doctor. Because we all know that the essential truth in teaching is when you enter the classroom, you are not teaching the class. You are teaching 25, 35, sometimes, hopefully not the case, even 50 different individual persons or 50 different individual students. So let's begin with that particular point that no matter how important our work is, we are prone to anxiety and to stress. And therefore, there's also a possibility that if we don't take care of ourselves, then we could be burned out. So this is the picture of a teacher who is burned out. And precisely, okay, I would like you to take a look at yourself, your own situation right now, your own context, and try to reflect on this particular question. Survival phase, September to October, after more than a month of working as a teacher. How am I feeling now that it is September, the second week of September? So I can give you probably a minute or two to jot down your notes, or maybe have the time to reflect, especially what I mentioned about the resilient teacher. That particular quotation coming from Dr. Geno that affirms that the teacher can be resilient. And the fact that no, that even though our profession is very important, okay, one of the most important professions, probably the second most important profession, okay, that it is prone to burnout. So think about it first. How am I feeling now that it is September? If you want, you can write down your notes in the chat box. All right, so we move on, and you can revisit your answers later on. So let's now take a look at some questions down in the trenches. And these questions are, okay, do I know colleagues who resigned because of the high level of stress? Teaching is one of the most important professions, if not the second most important profession. But at the same time, teaching is prone because it is very important. Okay, it talks about taking care of 25 or 35 students in a class. It is prone to anxiety, to stress, at the same time to burnout. leaving the profession. Do I know colleagues who burned out and who actually resigned because of the high level of stress? And perhaps the more important question is, was it possible for them, okay, or for the school, okay, in the person of the principal or the department head to prevent such resignation? Okay. I think it is important for us to take a look at the second one because later on, okay, we will focus on that particular help and support. But at the same time, I want you to take a look at that particular point regarding the help and support from the perspective of an individual teacher. Because later on, you will realize we are not going to talk about programs or policies because this particular session is not for policymakers. We're not going to talk about the role of the officer, the principal, the department head, no matter how important it is. All right? But we're going to talk about what can I do as a teacher in order for me to be able to thrive in the workplace, in the classroom, in the faculty room, despite the challenges that I encounter. Or as a teacher, how can I help my colleagues cope and become resilient? So we move on and let's take a look at burnout. We're going to spend a few slides, okay, and later on, actually several slides to take a look at burnout. There are antecedents of burnout. Number one, number two. So the school environment, especially if you're talking about uh, a school as a toxic workplace. There's gossiping, people or faculty members put down one another, etc. Okay. Of course, at the same time, when you take a look at antecedent of burnout in the context of a teacher, precisely the job. That despite the fact that it is a vocation, it's our personal calling, we know that there are a lot of demands and expectations in teaching. And sometimes those demands and expectations, if they are not met, okay, lead to anxiety and to stress and in the end burnout. But today, we're going to focus on another antecedent, the third one, the teacher. The teacher. Especially when we talk about what can I do to prevent burnout on my part. So we'll focus on the teacher. And in because we are focusing on an important area that one of the teacher, not the job, not the profession, not the vocation, or not the workplace, meaning to say the culture, okay? The question now is, what can I do to cope with stress and anxiety? And perhaps, okay, a more important question is, what can I do to prevent burnout? To prevent burnout. So we move on, and I would like now to take a look at this particular slide and to emphasize the point that all teachers need to recharge. It's just like the battery of a cell phone. We need to recharge it. So if it is depleted, around 20%, we need to recharge it in order for us to be able to use the cell phone. So in the case of the teacher, he also needs to recharge. And here, when we talk about recharging, well, we can talk about rest and recreation. We can talk about family life, work-life balance. Okay, but later on, I would like to propose certain strategies, the second part of this particular module, that would allow us to take a look at how can a teacher recharge. And definitely later on, you will find out that recharging the battery of a teacher, okay, is quite attainable. It's quite attainable because I'm going to propose certain strategies that are within our environment that we can actually use, okay, as individual teachers in order for us to be able to cope precisely with the stress and the anxiety. and therefore it does not lead to what we call burnout on our part. So the goal now is teacher well-being. This is the ultimate goal. And when we talk about teacher well-being, right, we talk about motivation, satisfaction in what we do. Because if we are satisfied and motivated, as you can see in this particular slide, the students will pick it up. And if teachers are motivated and happy, according to research, consequently, they are inclined to teach more effectively. I mean, if you take a look at a what we call our own experience, our own personal knowledge, uh, when we take a look at the good teachers in our school, the research literature labels them as the legends. The legends precisely because we talk about them. We are inspired by them. They are the foundations of the school. When we talk about these particular good teachers, we realize that they are happy, that they find joy in teaching. And precisely, even though they encounter the difficulties, they encounter certain obstacles, these challenges, okay, are actually points for them to transition to a better way of probably lesson planning, a better way of probably approaching approaches in teaching, a better way of probably cultivating a relationship with the student, etc. So this is the goal. The goal is to have happy teachers. The goal is to have a joy-filled pedagogy. Because when teachers are happy, as could be clearly seen in the slide, number one, the students will notice it, right? And we all know that when we talk about the hidden curriculum, the most important curriculum in the school is the teacher, right? Uh, Children do not want to be in the company of an adult who is stressed, who is anxious, who does not exude confidence. Now, of course, number two, when we are happy, okay, we teach well, we teach effectively. So that's the goal, teacher wellness or teacher well-being. So we start thinking then about these particular questions. How do I take care of my own well-being? How do I remain motivated to teach? How do I take care of my own well-being? How do I remain motivated to teach? So give everyone again a couple of minutes to think about these particular questions. All right, we move on. In other words, right, when we go back to that particular point regarding I the goal is teacher well-being. I am happy. I am filled with joy, right? Number two, okay? I am motivated. I am engaged to teach. Who will benefit from it? Our students. Our students. Okay? When teachers create conditions for students to be healthy, to be safe, to be engaged, to be supported, in other words, to learn, in other words, to be formed, okay? Such conditions become an impossible aim if the adults in the classrooms, we teachers, are worn out, depleted, or in other words, burned out. Or in other words, burned out. So it begins with the teacher. It begins with, since we are focusing on the teacher, remember the antecedents, since we're focusing on the teacher, we begin with how do we take care of ourselves in order for us to cope with all the difficulties, with all the obstacles, with all the challenges that we face every day in our teaching. Right. So, questions. Ask yourself. Number one, how comfortable do I feel in my role as a teacher? Number two, how healthy am I? And what is affecting my health positively and negatively? Physical health. How happy am I with my life generally and my life as a teacher? Some points to consider, because also even if we focus on our job, okay, or our vocation as teachers, a personal calling, the second one, physical health, is also very important. But take a look at the first one and take a look at the second one. So it does not matter whether you are on your first year of teaching. I mean, even if you are on your 10th year of teaching, 15th year of teaching, okay, we remain to be vulnerable, that because of the challenges that we face, maybe not at the same magnitude compared to a first year teacher, if you are a 10-year teacher, right? There's still the possibility that those obstacles, those difficulties, those challenges will become not only a source of anxiety or stress for us, but if we don't actually do something about them, in the long run, it becomes burnout. All right, so we move on and we take a look at two corners. I wrote down agree and strongly agree because I know no one will disagree. All right, okay. Such conditions become an impossible aim. The condition of good teaching, the condition of having engaged students, the condition of students actively participating inside the classroom, the condition of uh, students, okay, actually collaborating with one another when you use cooperative learning group activities, etc. Okay, so imagine those particular conditions wherein it actually sets up the students for success. But those conditions become impossible, unattainable if the adults in the classrooms are depleted, worn out, burnt out, and completely exhausted. Okay? Do you agree or strongly agree? Just like what I said, I don't think anyone will disagree. Okay? So, and then take a look at the reasons why you strongly agree or agree, right? Not the maximum. Take a look at your own experience. And if this particular observation coming from research is indeed true, because I would like to propose that this is one of the biggest reasons why, okay, we need to take care of ourselves, because in the end we we have to realize that when we enter teaching, our primary goal is to be able to make a difference, to be able to make an impact in the lives of the people whom we take care of. And these people are none other than the primary stakeholders in the school, our students. A minute or two. The students are dependent on us. And we can clearly see this particular dependency that when we enter the classroom, okay, our attitude, our outlook, our perspective, okay, is well, it is actually uh, perhaps not only the weather, but it becomes the climate of the classroom. It becomes the climate of that particular room. All right, so we move on, and here are the objectives of the session. And the objectives are actually divided into two. Number one, what are the signs and symptoms of teacher burnout? Uh, I will talk about them, but maybe I will skip some slides in order to go to the second one. Okay, so we'll have more time for the second one. What are the strategies to fight teacher burnout? So two-pronged, okay? A deeper understanding of teacher burnout, okay? In order for us to be able to prevent teacher burnout, we have to understand what is it all about, definition, what are the sources, okay? What are the dimensions, etc. And as important as the first question are actually what are the strategies that an individual teacher can actually employ, which is actually within his grasp to employ, within his power to employ in order to combat teacher burnout as early as September. So these are the two objectives, and I would like now to maybe request you to reflect on your own objectives when you saw the title of this particular seminar or module of the seminar series. What were you thinking of? What attracted you to this particular module? Do we have the same objectives? So spend some time regarding what are your objectives? Do the objectives appeal to you? Are you ready to embrace or own the objectives? Consider the reason why you attended or choose to attend or why you're attending now this particular session. All right, so we move on and let's now take a look at the signs and symptoms. So day and age of AI, 21st century. It's it's what we call the burnout shop. Indeed, we are prone to having a burnout because of many certain reasons. And I would just like to emphasize the point that in the day and age of AI, and actually this applies to teaching, working is like an all-out sprint with people going as fast as they could under extreme conditions. So just imagine, for example, okay, a teacher who who handles maybe 5 to 6 sections, maybe different, maybe 2 to 3 subjects, 5 to 6 sections, or just imagine, for example, handling an advisory class with 35 students with different personalities, and maybe you have 5 or even 6 difficult students, or imagine, for example, maybe, I don't know, maybe once a week or maybe even every day, when difficult parents come to school and they complain and you have to attend to them, and instead of maybe actually using your time to be able to plan your lessons, to be able to chat with students, but those parents actually consume a lot of your time. And this is what we call an all-out sprint because of the many things that you have to attend to every day as a teacher. And when you run at a sprint pace, you cannot sustain it over a long period of time. And that's why there is a need, for example, to stop, okay, to reflect. There is a need, for example, to number two, okay, talk to colleagues, make a connection with them. There is a need, for example, to number three, okay, come up with certain think about certain tools and strategies in order to be able to manage your time well, etc. Okay, because we cannot have an all-out sprint all the time. And precisely this particular session, this particular module, okay, allows us to do the stop and to reflect and to take a look at your own situation now and later on to be able to take a look at certain strategies, because those strategies will help you not only to cope with with the expectations of your job, but at the same time to be able to have a better appreciation of what we do as teachers. So the burnout shop. So teaching in an all-out sprint mode. Okay, what are the causes or what are the reasons? Then what can I do to actually solve it? Because if we do not actually deal with it, okay, the numbers tell us. So for example, in the US, around 40% of teachers leave the profession during the initial 5 years. When you take a look at the United Kingdom, okay, 82% of teachers suffer from lack of sleep. Almost half of them in the last year have sought medical advice. And take a look at the 5%. 5% have been hospitalized because of the demands of their work. I'm not quite sure about the figure for the Philippines. I tried looking for the figure, but I cannot find one. But I know that maybe not these numbers, but maybe close to these numbers or percentages. So, in order for us to be able to understand burnout, let's take a look at it from a historical perspective. 1974, Dr. Herbert Frodenberger was the first one to coin the term. When dealing with social workers, he noticed that, okay, there is what he called staff burnout. So this is a phenomenon that he defined as wearing out or the person becoming exhausted. And that particular wearing out or exhaustion on the part of the person is because of the excessive demand, okay, of the work on not only on the energy of that particular person, but on the resources that are available to that particular person. So if we imagine that, okay, we have here then a definition of burnout. And take a look at the first sentence and take a look at that particular entry called the loss of passion for one's job. Okay, we go back again to the fact that when we talk about teaching, for many of us, I think for all of us, it's not only a profession. It's not only a proprietary. We're not only talking about competence. We're not only talking about the fact that we have the knowledge and the skills. All right? We profess to the public profession that we know how to come up with an effective lesson plan. We profess to the public, and our license is a testament to it, that we know how to choose a good teaching method in order to match the content objectives and even probably the number or the students that we have in the class. So we profess professional competence. But we all know that when we talk about a loss of passion for one's job, we're talking about more than the competence. Maybe the competence is still there, the knowledge and the skills, but the disposition, right, is no longer there. Because when we talk about the passion, we talk about vocation. We don't only talk about a profession or propetere. Talk about we profess to the public that we're competent. We're talking about our own character as teachers. The teaching is a vocation. And when we no longer recognize that teaching is our vocation because we have lost our taste, quote unquote, for it, then that's where burnout comes in. That's where burnout comes in. So, as you can see in the second sentence, it's a chronic workplace stress. So, high level of stress. Kasi chronic, it's a high level of stress. And it occurs every day. It paralyzes people. It stops people from doing excellent work. You no longer have the okay when you take a look at food, you no longer have the appetite to eat. You no longer have the appetite to actually teach well. And this is something that we're trying to prevent. And precisely, uh, this particular first module in the Catalyst catalog is something that is timely, and not only timely, it is really worthwhile. So the loss of passions for one's job. Losing one's passion for teaching, maybe there are certain stressors. I don't know. Uh, each one has an individual difficult area. Maybe classroom management. Maybe the way we transition from one activity to another activity, and that when we transition, if we fail to do so, then we lose the class. The class becomes rowdy, noisy, etc. It may be something to do with dealing with difficult parents. It's a source of stress, or uh, how to deal with them, for example, in such a way that you are able to make them allies and not enemies, or maybe dealing with difficult colleagues, or inadequate support, a perception on your part, and maybe even a reality that there is inadequate support coming from your immediate superior, or even the school itself, or okay, this is dissatisfaction with one's teaching. That's actually the final one. There is another one. Or too many papers to check, too many papers to grade, too many papers to provide feedback, etc. Okay? So, because of these stressors, or because of one of these stressors, or a combination of these stressors, or all of these stressors, it leads to burnout. And precisely, we need to know how to cope with it, how to prevent it. All right. Okay. So I would like to choose one more slide. I will try to take a look at it. Okay. Right. Okay. Before we go to the strategies, before I run out of time, okay, I would like to emphasize the point now that when we talk about stress, sometimes the stress is positive and we need stress in our life. The point about burnout is that it's chronic stress, something that you cannot actually cope with, right? Because when there is positive stress, it actually benefits the teacher because it allows the teacher to aim higher. It allows the teacher to aim higher. It's just like saying, okay, I know that you can relate to this particular example. It's just like saying that when you talk about an effective teacher, the effective teacher causes positive stress on the students. That positive stress is what we call the high demand. The teacher is demanding. But at the same time, that particular teacher precisely is a good teacher, okay, because he does not only give high demands, but he gives high support. All right. So that particular stress, quote unquote, on the part of the students become positive because they are engaged, they are motivated, because they know that the teacher is around to actually provide the support that they need. And therefore, that's why we have the concept of the teacher as a warm demander. Okay? So don't think of stress as something that is negative all the time. Many times, hopefully many times, it becomes beneficial to us because it is positive. That's why, okay, this activity in the teacher's lounge, this is the place where you can actually relax, put your feet up, as they say, right, for a few minutes a day, then spending some time with the colleagues. Take a look at this particular question. What is a positive stress I can think of that leads to a beneficial outcome? All right. Maybe the source of that positive stress is a colleague whom you actually respect, who is very good at a certain aspect or area of teaching, that even if, for example, you feel you're inadequate in order to be able to match him at that level of proficiency, okay, you aspire to be just like your colleague. Maybe it has something to do with, maybe, I don't know, a learning disabled student in your class who needs a lot of attention and a lot of help, and that when you are able to provide that particular help, that you have an impact in that particular student, that you feel happy, that you feel satisfied, etc. So I think it is important that, well, every day we also think of a positive stress, a eustress, a eustress as we call it. All right. Okay, let me go now and take a look at, okay, the strategies. Before we take a look at the the very concrete strategies, I would like you to see this very important point, that I think it is impossible for a teacher not to be burnt out if there is no connection, if there is no sense of belonging. Again, if you cannot identify yourself with, I don't know, your department, maybe the elementary school department, the social studies department, or precisely with the school, that I love the school, that I like the school, that my personal beliefs, values, that my personal credo is aligned with what the school believes in, the school credo, the mission, the vision, that every day I wake up in the morning, okay, at the sound of the alarm, okay, I'm happy to move out of the house despite the heavy traffic, because I love to be in that particular school. Because precisely in that school, there is a sense of community. There's a sense of spirit. I belong to that school. I mean, we can easily relate to this particular point, especially if you take a look at classroom management, that during the first few days of the school year, or even probably during the first 2 weeks of the school year, we try to build a sense of community among the students that we have in that particular section, in that particular class, because we know the importance of building a community. In the context of professional development, our own professional development, the idea of the professional ethical learning community also comes into the picture, that number one, we are in this together. That number two, we have shared values and beliefs. That number three, that there's an essential agreement that we cannot move on as a school to become the best school that we can probably attain without everyone contributing, etc. There has to be a sense of connection with the people whom you work with, right? So okay, I would not look like the teacher in this picture if I have colleagues